Welcome to Nothing But Net. I'm Dave Rudin, and we have the state tournament edition. And oh man, we'll have a lot to say about the state tournament, but we do have four teams still alive. And I know I posed the question last week: am I going to be going to Mohegan Sun? And I had my doubts, and it looks like I'm going to be going there for one game, and I don't know about one game for certain, but there's a lot of unpack here, talking about the teams, and as I've been doing a lot, as we've been doing a lot, just talking about the whole state tournament format, which just has to change. And joining me as always, Mike Walsh. Mike, how you doing?
Good to be here, Dave, and discussing the state tournament and the fact that we have four FCIAC teams in the state tournament. I think it's a credit to them. And as you were saying, I know that what you think about the state tournament and how it's set up, but you can only play the schedule that's given to you, and those four teams playing the schedule that's given to them.
And that's exactly. We're going to talk a little bit about the state tournament format and using what has happened. But yeah, there's going to be two disclaimers right off the bat, and we haven't even mentioned yet. We have Ridgefield still alive in the quarterfinals. The quarterfinals, because we're going to have a Division One edition of Nothing But Net next year, and we're going to call it Nothing But Sitting Around. But which the Division One teams have basically been doing for the last 10 days. But Ridgefield is alive in the quarterfinal round. And finally, we'll play a game Monday, second game against Northwest Catholic. We have Stanford and Fairfield Ward still alive in Division Two, and they're in the semifinal round. And we have Fairfield Ludlow that is still alive in Division Three in the quarterfinal round. We'll do a little bit of the state tournament bashing right off the bat and these examples, but the two things that we want to make sure are understood. Number one, nothing is knocking the four FCIAC teams, or for that matter, any of the teams still alive in the state tournament. These teams were put into the fields under the current format. They've gone out and won their games in impressive fashion so far. Stanford had to go all the way up to Manchester yesterday and beat the number one seed. And Fairfield Ward has had a nice run, and Fairfield Ludlow's been, I don't know if you call them a Cinderella just because of the field they're in, but when you look what they did during the regular season, they're a Cinderella. So nothing at all. To their credit, they've done what they've been asked to do, and hopefully maybe we'll have four teams playing in the state finals. And the other thing, because we've bashed it to bits, we've talked in the future, and I wrote this in my column, we're never going to use the words past, prior, before, ago in setting up the state tournament format. Everything from now on has got to be in the present and not in the past. And I know we've talked about that all the time, and I don't want to belabor that point and just bore everybody. But why don't we go through each division, and we can kind of talk about the teams involved, what they've done, and what's ahead, and also just talk about the format. And well, let's start off with Division One, which is supposed to be the premier event with ostensibly the 16 best teams in the field. I looked at Mike. I looked at when I wrote a column, the 16 teams, and I looked at the state writers poll, which I participate in, and of the 16 teams, six of them were not in the top 16 in our poll. And I'm not going to say that the state writers poll is the holy grail, but we're pretty close, and we're pretty good, at least in identifying the teams, whether you agree with them or not. So that's one issue. And number two, if they're going to keep it, whether they keep it this way or not, you can't have four rounds. You can't have these teams sitting around. Ridgefield's going to play Monday night against Northwest Catholic. it'll be their first game in 13 days. And granted, they lost in their league semifinals, but even if they had won, it'll be just their second game in 11 days. And I don't know what you do, how many times you can have scrimmaging against yourself, but
Well,
Mike,
let me say,
yeah,
let me say this thing. First of all, Northwest Catholic, by the way, is in the same boat. They lost in the first round of their tournament, and they've had
all these
many
teams,
days
all these teams are in the same boat. It's not just Ridgefield. Any team in Division I that's still playing has been sitting around.
Right, and I do think that they are the top teams for the most part in the state that are in Division One, with few exceptions. But the fact that there are teams that are not in Division One that should be in Division One, I think speaks to the tournament and the way it's set up. Richfield, I think, got the good side of the bracket, and they went out and they beat Danbury, who, by the way, played a very tough game against them at Richfield.
Yeah,
And then
we'll discuss
you
that.
covered that game, correct?
Yeah, well, let's just talk quickly about the format, and then let's get to actual play, because I was at that game.
All right, and in Division Two, it's the same thing. You have Stanford.
Let's just go division by division. We'll get to two. Bottom line is the 16 best teams are not in this field. There's 5 or 6 teams, including 2 teams that were in the top 6 in the latest state writers poll that are not in Division I.
Right, but I do think that you have the probably 7 or 8 of the top teams in the state are in Division One. Now, you probably need more than that because of the bye factor that you're talking about, where these teams are not playing. If you went to 32 teams in Division One, or if you just called it double L, I think you'd have a better tournament, and a team would not be sitting around. Your first round game would be against a very good team, and you better be on your toes to beat them. And it would probably be a premier tournament, like we used to have back, as I keep going back to 2004, 2005.
This is with 16 teams. It feels like an inflated conference tournament. Only it's statewide teams. You've got to have a minimum of, you have to have another round for every tournament. I've never seen you would think they try to make it harder to win the premier tournament, and they actually make it easier by having to play one less game.
Well, maybe they want to make Division One their premier tournament, and they want to give teams a chance to be ready to go and get the Mohegan Sun. Like, let's face it, that's the big drawing card usually for Division One is at Mohegan. East Catholic, Northwest Catholic, East Catholic the year before that against Bristol Central. So, I mean, maybe that's the thinking. I can't really answer that question, but we'd have to ask them.
Bottom line is this format that, as we've seen, is deeply, deeply flawed. And again, I talked about it last weekend in my column. That's why I think we get away from based on performance, and we go to school size. So that was last week's podcast. Let's just look at Ridgefield right now and not use all of this to take away. First of all, from Ridgefield's performance in the first game last Wednesday, or Thursday, I can't even remember anymore. It's been, it seems like it was 2 weeks ago. But
it was Thursday. Go ahead.
Thursday, a 68-63 win over Danbury in a game where both teams really played well. Danbury, to its credit, really tested Ridgefield. They went out playing their best. They got the kind of balance, supporting scoring for Cam Perkins that we've said that they need. Between Nez Perkins and Tremaine Frazier went out there, and they played really well. The first quarter was played at, I forget what the score was, but it was at one of the fastest tempos I've seen all year. And what was the difference? Ridgefield balance, Ridgefield depth, and Ridgefield just having a better starting 5 when you have three guys on your team all score 17 points, you're probably going to win that game. And that was the case with Alistair Walsh, Nick Skenga, and Ian Swadowitz. Just a really, really good performance by Ridgefield. To both teams' credit, they both lost in the FCIAC semifinals. They didn't look like they didn't have the rust of having sat around. It was just a really good game and a really good win for Ridgefield.
No question about it. And credit goes to Danbury for the way they played, but also credit to Richfield, as you say. And I think it was a good contest for Richfield because they needed that after having the layoff. That, and what was their reward? They got 5 more days off before they play again.
I wanted to ask you this as a coach, okay? If you had this kind of format where you sit around for a week and you win, and then you got to sit around another 5 days, what do you do?
Well, I've been there. I've been there, and at this time of the year, there's two things. You heal up a lot of wounds by having a couple days off, but at the same time, too much time. I used to bring in some of my former players, and we'd scrimmage. So we try to keep in game shape, but it's not easy. Let me put it that way. And I think that you go back to your fundamentals. You know who you're playing, basically, and you try to get ready for the next game. But it's a lot of time, and you have to use it judiciously, if you want to say. And I would prefer to play just like a Tuesday, Friday, like we've been doing on the whole season. But that is probably not possible in the state tournament. One more point on that with Division One. It's ironic. I just was reading where both Danbury and Ridgefield had the opportunity to go down to Division Two. And to their credit, they said, no, we'll stay in Division One. The way they make this state tournament, if you're not a school of choice, and which two teams decided to go up to Division One, Hill House and Notre Dame of Fairfield, and there was one other team that also, I think it was WCA out of NVL. They decided to go up to Division One, and because of that, you had too many teams, and you could drop down to Division Two. That's another thing that's wrong with that thing. I mean, imagine putting Danbury and Ridgefield in Division Two.
You have a pretty good tournament there with Windsor. You could have. Why don't you just split all the best teams in the state, and you can have two top heavy tournaments where you get to the quarterfinals or semis, and you have the best teams. I mean, Ridgefield's been I didn't realize that, but I mean, Ridgefield's been again, it doesn't matter what they've done before. I think didn't Staples decide to play Division One also this year to their
yes, I think they could have moved down too.
I think they had their choice and they went to Division One, and credit to them. They lost. They had a tough game with East Catholic, and they decided that they want to play the best. And you know what? All these teams that opt up to Division One, as opposed to the reason why we don't have that super tournament in 2004 where our coach threw a game so he didn't have to be in Division One. To their credit, they're playing up there. But again, why are we talking opt up or opt out? We only talk about it in basketball. If you play it at your school size, you're not opting anything. So I don't know. I'm just so fed up with this tournament.
I don't disagree with a lot of what you're saying, but I do think that just what Andrew and David from Staples Gulshaw, and also they want to play the best.
Yeah,
and you want to be the best. You want to be in Division One. So why don't we put 32 teams of the best in a double L and go from there?
I'm done. Yeah, but we're going to school size. We're going to school size, and we're placing. We're probably not doing anything because Mohegan will be crowded no matter who's there, and
dollars will roll in.
I don't think the state cares anymore, which is. I mean, this is so obvious. Everybody's been bashing it to me, and the fact that they allow this to go on tells me all they care about is the money coming in at Mohegan Sun.
Well, it is the
Now,
premier.
we've gotten off track again with Ridgefield. Let's, I don't want to take away. Let's look going forward, because actually Ridgefield, if they win, is going to have to play 2 games in 3 days. Imagine that. A normal schedule, and they've got to play Northwest Catholic, and if they win that game, they could either be playing Colby or they could have a rematch against St. Bernard.
Right, and to get to Mohegan. So, I mean, I think it's a good opportunity for Andrew. He's always talked about wanting to play the best and to win a state championship. And I think he can get there. And I think you'll be enjoying Mohegan Sun up there and watching the Tigers play the championship game. I hope so, anyway.
Yeah, I mean, you look the other half of the draw, Notre Dame of West Haven's there, Notre Dame of Fairfield's there, and East Catholic is there. So along with WCA, that's a pretty loaded half of the bracket. So again, it's not going to be easy, but the lane is set up for Ridgefield to drive through. So let's see if they can do it. Let's go down to Division II, which even more so crystallizes what's off with this tournament. And we've got 2 teams that got knocked out in the first round of the FCIAC tournament, and they've regrouped, and they're going to be in the Final Four on Tuesday night with a chance to get to Mohegan. We've got Stanford, the number 8 seed, which has been playing real well, and they're going to have a solid shot when they play West Haven. And then we've got Fairfield Ward, which I saw play last night against Bloomfield, the 14th seed, and they're playing a Windsor team that, if we had a real Division I tournament with all the best teams in it, Windsor would be. Windsor would be a contender for a real Division I title, let alone being a heavy favorite here in Division II.
There's no question about that. To me, and I've seen Windsor play several times. Last time against East Catholic in the championship game, the CCC, they're really good. And I think that whoever wins Division II is going to have to go through Windsor. Ward's got a tough assignment. But don't count them out, because they've come back from their tournament defeat in the FCIAC and have gone on a roll and beaten who they had to beat in the tournament. And the same with Stanford. I mean, I have to give them credit. They probably were disappointed they lost to Danbury in the FCIAC. They had some time off. They regrouped, and they went out and they beat Enfield and a pretty good Farmington team. And then last night went up to Manchester in a hostile crowd and defeated Manchester. They're coming on. They now play West Haven. They're pretty familiar with, I think. They didn't play them, but I think
You agree with me? Stanford's got the best chance of the 4 teams left going to Mohegan?
I think Ridgefield does too. But I think Stanford.
If you ask me to bet which of the 4 teams you think is the best chance, I'm putting my money down on Stanford having the best chance.
Well, I'm not going to disagree with that. I think the way they're playing, they can beat a West Haven team and get to the finals, and then they played Windsor and see what happens. But again, not to belabor the point, but I think Richfield's path is there too. So those 2 have the best chance. Ward, they're going to have to pull an upset, because to beat Windsor, they're going to have all those 3-pointers going in and Jack Kramer playing really well. But they're there. So if you're there, you got a shot.
Credit to Ward. I was at the game last night. I actually was at both their games. They beat Trumbull, the FCIAC champion, 56-49. They caught a little bit of a break, more than a little bit of a break, when Ryan Johnston hurt his ankle early in the second quarter, their leading scorer, and he had already scored 10 points to that part. So that was a break for them. But to their credit, they were the better team with who was on the court that night, and they played well. They had Ward's been a weird team, and Ward hasn't always played the smartest ball, and that's what's hurt them because they have some talent. But last night was one of the best, most complete games I saw them play. And I think they had 6 3-point shots, and you're saying 6 isn't a lot. 6 is about, 6 is around what you want them to do because they were getting the ball inside to Jack Kramer. And Kramer was more assertive than I think I've seen him all year in getting the ball and going to the basket. He was basically saying, I'm going to get the team there, and not a role where he was hogging the ball. And Ryan Moore played a really good game for them too, and stayed within himself, scored 16 points. The couple of times Bloomfield made a run, 2 times in particular, in the third and fourth quarters. Both times Moore stopped the run with a couple of baskets, and then Kramer added a couple of baskets. You have Danny Goldberger for them, who's kind of has really stepped up, playing a bigger role. The whole Josh Stewart Lewis has really come on at point guard, is playing well. They're playing well. The only thing and I don't know whether hopefully they'll have this opportunity at Windsor, but it was funny last night because the one thing when they play with a lead, they don't believe in eating clock. They in fact, and I was watching Coach Justin Henry. He literally had his hands in the air, was giving them the stop sign, and they were running through it and threw up a couple of shots with 20 seconds still on the shot clock. But they had enough of a lead. It didn't hurt them, and it's going to be a sizable task against Windsor, and maybe they pull off a great upset. If they don't, they've had a really nice run in this Division II tournament, and played a couple of good games to keep their season going and get to the Final Four.
No question about it, and we wish them luck. But on to our Division III tournament.
Well, I'm not done with Division II yet. So.
Oh, wait a minute! You got something to say on Division II?
I haven't talked about Stanford yet, so
Oh, I thought I did, but you didn't.
Well, you just brought Stanford. Stanford was a team that has been on the cusp of being an elite team and being a little inconsistent at times. They got hurt, falling behind a lot against Danbury early, and almost made a spectacular comeback and fell short just because they had fallen too far behind. But they're a team in a real Division I tournament that would be playing in Division I. They're definitely one of the top 32 teams, and you can, they were 16 teams. They probably just missed the cut there, but they're right in the gray area. And when they play smart and they play well, they're a handful for everybody. I know we haven't seen anything. We didn't get a box or any details on the Manchester game, so I know you watched a little bit of it, but we don't really know much about what happened outside the win. But I'm not surprised at all that Stanford's still alive. And I don't know a lot about West Haven, but just looking at games and strength of schedule, Stanford's in a really good spot. And if they get there, this has been a really good year for Stanford sports. Their co-op girls hockey team just played in the state final. Their boys soccer team got to the state championship. The football team got into the playoffs for the first time in a while. And I might be missing somebody I'm not thinking of. I think their girls soccer team got into the state playoffs for the first time maybe ever. So it's been a really good year for Stanford sports, and it'd be another feather in the cap if they could get to Mohegan Sun. I know you'll see a lot of black and orange there if they get there.
No question. And I really have to credit the players and the coaches. Their starting lineup is pretty good. Obviously, you have E.J. Presley, who's obviously one of the top players in the league. You have J.J. Salvatore, who's coming on. He's starting to play good basketball. Ryan Connors and Winchester was second team All FCIAC. That's pretty good nucleus, and a couple of guys. Damian Taylor comes off the bench, I think, or he's on the starting five. So they could beat anybody. I mean, I thought in the beginning of the year that they were certainly a challenger for the FCIAC, and they did beat Trumbull during the year. So I can't say it's a surprise. And you say they're on the cusp of Division One. I think they could beat some teams in Division One, but they're in Division Two with Windsor, and But cheer up, maybe next year they'll be in Division One with the 16.
Well, in this current format, who knows where they can be? Who knows where anybody's going to be? Trumbull, Windsor. Again, I just can't take this tournament seriously. But again, Stanford's playing really. Hey, Stanford finished third in the league. They finished behind Ridgefield and Trumbull, so they finished against a team that was number 2 in the state in the polls and the team that won the FCIAC championship. So, right. Stanford had a really, really good regular season. And, in this Division II tournament, it's not a surprise that they've gotten this far, and it's not going to be a surprise. They've got the talent. EJ Presley can play with anybody. And when the other guys on the team are playing their best, Stanford's a dangerous team. So, let's see. It'd be great if we got an all FCIAC final, and if we had Stanford go against Windsor, let's hope Stanford gets there and see what they can do. And why don't we close out now with the Division III tournament, where I don't know what the common link is between all these schools in here. You got schools that would be double L, you got schools that would be S. You got a melting pot, and we have our favorite dancing coach, John Daly, still alive.
I wish we could show that video.
I should have gotten. I got to get the technical capabilities to flash that video up. But maybe I would say, just looking over everything here and based on what I know, probably the best win of the Division III tournament so far. Fairfield Ludlow went up to Wilby on Thursday and came away with a 44-42 win. And the players were celebrating, but celebrating probably even more demonstratively was John Daly, who did his high school version of Jim Valvano, running around looking for somebody to hug after winning the national championship. But you got a Ludlow team that played all its toughest games at the end of the season. They were 1-6 at the down the stretch of the regular season, and they are 2 wins away from going to Mohegan as well. 2 Fairfield teams still alive, 4 teams in the FCIAC still alive, and 2 from Fairfield.
Well, imagine if they were one school like they used to be. We used to have to beat the one school back in the day. But John, go ahead, what? John deserves a lot of credit, obviously, but his kids do too. They really hang tough. I mean, I saw that Wilby game. Wilby's in the NVL. They've had some success in the NVL. But at the end of the game, they were up 1, and Wilby had 2 shots. One glanced off the front of the rim, and the other one I thought was going in, but it didn't. It went out, and then the dance went on. And that's a great. I don't know what John's going to do when he upsets Waterford. Yeah, he actually gets a home game now again, doesn't he?
We got to get. Yeah, he's home too, because they're the 20. Waterford's the 22nd team. John's definitely the beneficiary of this tournament, and he'll be the first to admit it. Where you're the 14th seed with a home game. We know, because of the way this tournament's set up, we know pretty much nothing. I know Lewis Mills, the 2nd seed, which would be their opponent if they were to be possible opponent if they beat Waterford. I mean, this just goes to show you how crazy. Why this tournament. You've got 8 teams left, including the 13th seed, the 14th seed, the 22nd seed, and the 26th seed.
Well, I think Lewis Mills is a second seed, but are they an S school or an M school? I think they're really in baseball. We used to face them in the S, so I don't know how they moved up to
And
Division Three.
and SMSA is the one seed, and they've had a pretty good, they've had a pretty good season too. They're on a long winning streak here. I don't know if they were a possible lower Division One team in a 32 team field. They probably are, but hey,
Who's that?
it's a melting
SMSA?
pot, and it's a melting pot division. And I didn't think of this, but we should have found I don't know if there's an Arthur Miller in Fairfield. There's certainly some dance studio, but we should have the Rudin Report would have gone into its coffers there and gotten John Daly a good a real good dance lesson, because he's gonna have, if they win, he's gonna have to top that.
Well, hey, who knows? He may be getting to on St. Patrick's Day, March 17th. He may be at Mohegan. What a dance he could do! The Irish jig. He'd be all set playing in the championship game. But kudos to Ludlow and how they hung tough this season, and all the teams actually in the semifinals and the quarterfinals.
Yeah, and again, we're knocking the tournament, and rightfully so. But you know what? This is where Ludlow was put into, and they've, again, to their credit, they've gone out, they've won 2 games, and they've positioned themselves. They're not. None of these teams are worried about how the tournament's set up. They just see who they have to play, and they go out there and win, and that's what they're supposed to be doing. So I didn't, again, the way this tournament's set up, it's also kind of hard to know. As you get down to 2 and 3 and then 4 and 5, it's kind of hard to know. And again, we've got, I know some of the people upstate are complaining from this standpoint, and they're right, is, we cover a league that's almost all double L, and you got some double L schools that are playing L's and M's and even S's. So I know some of the smaller schools upstate, the sports writers have been griping about them having to play teams that are 2-3 times the size, but they've gone out there, they've won, and like I said, the girls, for the first time in a long time, nobody from the FCIAC has made it to Mohegan, but I think I'm gonna have to plan on going there at least once and maybe twice, and hopefully, we'll end up, Division I and Division II boys, they'll end up being the 2 late games, Saturday and Sunday, and I'm gonna have
You have to stay overnight.
I'm either gonna have frequent flyer, I'm gonna have to do a lot of driving, or I'm gonna have to get a room up there and maybe check out the casinos Sunday afternoon.
Maybe you'll get lucky.
We'll see. Mike, I didn't really think about this, but let's see what happens, and depending on when and who wins, maybe we'll do a state preview final if we'll allow for that possibility, and if not, we'll do our final podcast. And I've got to sit down and I know my first team, but I'll this week put together my and maybe have you see if you agree or disagree as I finalize it, my all FCIAC teams, and we can discuss that too in the final podcast.
Sounds like a great plan. We're rooting for Richfield. We're rooting for Fairfield Ward, Stanford, and Ludlow.
Did we have a big championship win in Stanford last night?
Yeah, well, the fourth, it was actually in Darien when my grandson's 4th grade team won the Darien League Championship, and they all got trophies, and we took pictures, and it was a nice night. So
it's kind of like the FCIAC. Everybody gets a trophy.
Absolutely.
How did your grandson play?
I don't want to brag on him, but he's pretty good. I didn't count.
Was he the high scorer?
Uh, I tell you, he's pretty good. And there was another kid, actually Bill Arnone's son, Michael Arnone, and that's Michael Leary's grandson too. He was pretty good too, and the two of them work well together. I
Wow, so
think.
I got my accountant's grandson. I've got that it's really so you got Arnone and O'Leary's grandsons too.
No, I think the key.
I'm gonna have to come cover one of these games. All my my friends from my Stanford Advocate days.
Well, back in the day, yeah, come on down, and well, it's all over now this year, but next year they go on to
Now,
the.
was the fourth grade tournament field? Was it equitable? Was it? Did you have all the best teams there, or did they go by did they go by their school sizes?
Well, I hate to say it, but my daughter Allie coached the team, and
Allie coached the team. I didn't know that.
you should have shown it.
How many technical fouls did she have this year?
She was the loudest person in the gym. Let's put it that way.
You were did she get teed up at all?
And close, but no, she didn't get to. No. She takes after her mother. Not her father, was always quiet, calm, and collected.
Oh yeah.
On the sidelines.
I guarantee you, if she was the loudest person in the gym, you were probably number two sitting in the stands.
No, I was actually sitting with my wife and Bill Arnone and Michael Leary, and we were just following the game. The other team had a really good player. He's a left-handed shooter from Darien. If I was still coaching, I would try to recruit the kid. He was that good. But enough of this. But it was a lot of fun.
All right, let's call it a day here. So that's our episode of Nothing But Net State Tournament Edition. I again want to thank co-host Mike Walsh. I want to thank Cooper Boardman for the sound editing. Fairfield Ludlow, Fairfield Ward, Stanford, Ridgefield. Good luck. Hopefully we'll have a preview of you all playing in the championships. And we'll be back with everybody real soon.